What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. We have a bit of an unfortunate episode to film today, something that I don't really want to cover, but I feel like out of respect, I should cover it. I'm sitting here with my co-host, Rich. Rich, it's good to see you.
Good morning, Seth. And here we are on this bright, sunny morning, and we usually talk about crime cases, and that's what we're talking about today. Most of our crime cases have been in the past, sometimes distant past, sometimes recent past. But this crime occurred on last Wednesday.
Before we dive on into the case, I want to give a shout out to Barnabas Collins for her $20 super chat. I posted a condolences video for the Kirk family on the channel, and she sent a $20 super chat or super thanks. Thank you for doing that. It helps keep the show running. There are some costs to running the show, marketing and software and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the super chat. It helps keep us going and helps the show get better every single episode. But today we're here to talk about Charlie Kirk.
A tragic event.
A tragic event, yeah. Do we want to break down how?
Sure. You can start and give us a little bit of an introduction of where it happened, what happened, and then I'm going to give you some views on my thoughts on this whole situation. Being at my age, I've seen this too often.
Right.
And we've talked about several cases of this similarity of expressing displeasure towards political ideas, and this infringes on all of us, on you, on me, on our show, on our viewers. We have a freedom of speech. Everyone does. And when others on the extreme ends of both sides of the position interpret that as a call to action, it is completely unacceptable, and we've all got to calm things down, think things out. Our political leaders, our people who represent us, and ourselves, we need to take a deep breath, think about what we're saying, and then go from there. So I'll let you take the beginning of this to tell us what happened, where, and when.
Sure. So first things first, Charlie Kirk, Mr. Kirk was a father of two. He was a political activist who had most of his popularity online. He had spoken at Republican conferences and events. Very, very well known in the political atmosphere and very, very well respected amongst the Republican, Republican populace. Mr. Kirk was hosting an event at Utah Valley University on Wednesday, and 2 questions in, on his second question, he was addressing a young man about gang violence and mass shooting violence, and what the nation can do as a whole to end that. And tragically, Mr. Kirk was shot in the neck by a 30-06 at a distance at about 100 to 200 estimated meters atop a building. I had seen earlier this morning in my research that building was the angle was about a 10 to 15 degree angle. But the way that Mr. Kirk was handled after the shooting took place, I feel was professional. I feel that he was immediately rendered first aid to the best of his security's ability. From what I saw, I did watch the full content of the video from different angles just to fully understand it. I had stumbled across it by accident, actually, so it was very jarring at first. At first, I thought it was like AI. I thought it was fake, but after a little bit of research, I realized that it was a actual real video. Upon rendering first aid, his security then very promptly brought him to a vehicle that they had staged backstage, I guess, if you will, or in the rear of his tent where he would address the crowd. And he was transported to a local hospital to undergo life-saving surgery, that of which was unsuccessful. So that's a very brief overview, outline of what happened. Mr. Kirk was pronounced deceased later on in the afternoon. I had seen reports that he was stable for a very short period of time. I don't have the exact time that he was stable, but I would believe that that was around the time when he first entered the hospital, and very much prior to undergoing the life-saving surgery attempt. So with that, I'm gonna pass that back to you, Rich.
Well, I'm going to be referring to my notes.
Sure.
Real closely today.
Absolutely, it was very fresh. We put this together.
Yes.
Very short notice.
And I want to stay within the boundaries of what I think needs to be said.
Sure.
I don't want to get off on a tangent somewhere. Sometimes it's easy as we sit here chatting that our conversation goes down different avenues.
Right.
And on today's, I'd like to for myself, I'd like to be contained within the boundaries of what I put together over the last few days.
Sure.
And the title of what I put together was the Assassination, Polarization, and the Rising Tide of Violence, not just in America, but worldwide, but in particular in America. The radical extremes of all political parties are trying to interpret what our political leaders are saying. And you and I, Seth, take a look at what some of our politicians are saying, and they say, we need to stop them, we need to change, we need to do this. And you and I interpret that as, yeah, we can do that. We go to the ballot box when it's our turn to vote, and we vote, and we try to express what our feeling is on any particular view or any particular candidate. But those on the extreme edges of our political spectrum take those thoughts and that rhetoric to mean that they personally have to do something. They have to react. And they overreact. And I can give you some examples.
Sure.
What happened out in Utah on Wednesday. And haven't we seen this before? Didn't we see that a year ago? I mean, the similarities. Shooter from a high building.
Yeah.
Looking down upon someone speaking. Didn't we see that back in 1963? We had a show on that, on 1963. Yeah. Shooting from a high building.
This is something that needs to stop.
Unfortunately, what happens is, and as I refer to my notes,
Sure.
What happens is we react very well. Technology allows us to react very well after the fact. I heard someone on TV last night on the news say the similarities between this case and how quickly the assassin was apprehended, and they compared it to the Boston Marathon bombings and how both social media and surveillance helped to establish who the person was and aided in the apprehension of them. And in this past case, relatively quick terms. That's all well and good, but we need to use our technology to prevent these things from occurring. Instead of being, there's somebody on a local radio station, not ours, on a local radio station who is an attorney, and he says it's better to be proactive than it is reactive.
I agree.
And that's what's happened. We react very well to situations as tragic as they are. However, we're not proactive. There are red flags out there. And what happened in Utah on Wednesday is unacceptable.
Yes.
What happened in Colorado on Wednesday is unacceptable with a shooting in a school.
And that went on. I don't think that got as much publicity.
Of course it did not.
Because it was kind of clouded.
And what happened in Charlotte at the end of August on a train. Security camera showed it all.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. What happened in Minnesota in the church that we mentioned a week ago and then 2 weeks ago, that's unacceptable. And in all of those cases, there were red flags. And everybody has to be aware of their circumstances, whether it be within their own social group, within their own family, within their own society. When you see red flags, you've got to react to it. If you think something's wrong, if you think something's out of place, if you think something looks disturbing to you, you should note it and tell somebody if you think it's that serious. There were red flags in all of those cases. There were red flags in the Minnesota shooting. There were 14 red flags on the person on the train who brutally murdered the passenger who was sitting in front of him. He went to court 14 different times. Those are red flags. Those people should not be out there. And we as a society have to do something about it.
Something that a lot of people probably aren't aware of is in Massachusetts, is the red flag law, which pertains to owning a firearm. Are you familiar?
Yes.
The red flag law is essentially power given to those who surround you, those who you live with or who are close to. It gives them the power to inform the local police that, hey, I feel like something's not right. And the police have the power to act within their boundaries to prevent any type of incident occurring for firearms owners.
And it's sad. In the course of political discourse, political information, Charlie Kirk, and I've heard people since his passing say, well, he infuriated people. I never saw that in the discussions that I saw with him on TV at political events and on podcasts and things like that.
There were some folks who got very agitated, but I feel like it was more the online crowd.
But he allowed people, public discourse, to debate with him.
Right, absolutely, as you should.
And he believed in debate. He did not believe in arguing.
Right.
He believed in debating. He would let someone speak and put him on the spot. He was willing to put himself on the spot in any circumstance and try to give a logical presentation of what his position was on the particular topic. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And when the radical fringe decides to take it upon themselves to be the judge and the jury and the executioner of somebody who disagrees with them, who disagrees with their viewpoint, then we as a society have to step back and say, you know what? Maybe I, as a politician should tone down my rhetoric. We see this in political debates all the time. Politicians don't tell us what they're going to do as much as they tell us how bad their opposition is, even within their own party.
Right.
And it's decisive. It can be, to you and I, it's part of public discourse, but to that radical extremes of all sides of a question, it calls them to political violence, to believe that that's okay to try to silence somebody because you disagree with them. And I don't think that social media has helped this situation at all in the last 15 or 20 years, last 2 decades. Social media seems to fuel that because it gives people that point of being anonymous as they criticize you for what you may or may not say on even a show like this. The idea that they are anonymous gives them strength to call you out and not to present their position, but to say that yours is wrong. And this has got to change. We're going to have to tone things down. We're going to have to be careful on, as a society, on the tone of what we're expressing to each other. Because there's some people that interpret that entirely in the improper way.
Right.
And we can do better. We as a society can do better.
We can. We have to work together. Something that I preached on Wednesday when I found out in my 5-minute video that I published, very, very brief, on the spot, quick video. Something that I mentioned was we have to work together to spread peace. And that's coming from someone that, owns firearms. I look at owning a firearm as the way I view it is like this. I am terrified of the day that I ever have to actually use them in a form of self-defense only. I feel like using firearms in a form of offense is not what the Second Amendment was presented to us for. I feel like it's used for defense and to protect yourself.
Oh, I agree with you. On the other hand, when our politicians have a moment with the cameras in front of them, they engage often in incendiary rhetoric that you and I may not interpret as incendiary. Wow. Better lock out. I'm getting into a confrontation with my microphone.
Talk it out, Rich.
Yes.
Don't hit the mic.
Right. So those political incentives that that allow people to have a voice and give their opinion in incendiary rhetoric that is using the media to support their particular position. I heard a politician, I'm not going to mention any names, just last night, and was making the comparison that because Charlie Kirk, his position on firearms, it came back to haunt him. That's totally irrelevant.
It's absolutely irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Charlie Kirk was married, was a father, was a dad. Number one, a dad, a father, a husband,
Yeah.
a son,
An educator.
just like you and me.
Yeah.
And for someone to think that to silence that, and the reason that his assassination was done in the way that it was, is an effort to silence all of us, to silence you, to silence me, to silence all of us. That was a public execution. That particular person could have done, if he wanted to assassinate Charlie Kirk, could have done it in a much more private way. But to do it in the way that it was done is the way that the political extremes of all parties tend to express themselves. They don't consider their own public safety, their own what happens afterwards. Some of them, in the case of the Minnesota shooting at the church, where students from the Assumption School were at a mass, and that particular assassin committed suicide. So he committed suicide, but had to do this heinous act upon children beforehand. And what was sad about that case to me was when they reported that, before they showed the pictures, the day before they showed the pictures of the 8-year-old and the 10-year-old who were killed in that, the first person that they showed was the assassin, who was already deceased. There was no need of showing that. But media has to police itself just like our politicians with rhetoric. There's no need of putting on a picture of a particular person who committed a heinous crime, like the one against Charlie Kirk. I watched the news last night. There were more pictures of the shooter than there were of the victim.
I am not allowing the shooter. I'm not allowing his name, and I'm not going to allow his picture on the show today.
No, we're just not going to even discuss that.
It's very simple to look up. If you're looking for it, just look up Charlie Kirk assassin, and you'll see images and stuff like that. But I'm not granting him an audience ever on my show.
And in many cases, in many political assassination types of situations, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the publicity after the fact as part of the whole package.
Right.
And I appreciate the fact that we're not doing that today. I didn't even include that in my notes.
I have I have prepared material on like the outline and what happened, the details of it. Do you want to talk about the particular firearm that was used?
No.
Okay.
I would just as soon leave that out. It seemed like in many cases we say, oh, it was an assault rifle. It was not that in this case.
No, this was a hunting rifle.
However, the fact that there was only one shot taken goes to show the fact that this person, that's what the plan was. The plan was to take one shot and bolt and leave the scene. And that's exactly...
A parallel that I drew from a previous case that we did that was very popular was amongst the Black Dahlia. And what I mean by that, and the connection that I can draw from this, is with the Black Dahlia, we discussed the presentation of Elizabeth was in such a way for maximum visual effect. And that's essentially what happened here.
Yes.
Was the nature of this crime was done in a way for maximum effect. And that's the reason for a public assassination opposed to something more private.
And let's suppose that the shooter was fractions of a millimeter or fractions of an inch off and missed his target. Unfortunately, he still made his point.
Right.
And the point was to silence, in his mind, what was the opposition. He disagreed with Charlie Kirk. So he was going to use a method of possibly silencing him or showing everyone there, the thousands of people who were there, the media who was there, the media who videoed it and showed it on TV, and all of those people who do commentaries like you and I or anyone else who covers these stories, to show us that we are vulnerable. He succeeded in what he was doing, which was to assassinate his target. But even if he had not have assassinated his target, he would have made his point. And the point is, we need to be careful.
Right.
And it shouldn't be that way.
And another point is we need to work together.
Exactly.
We, as a people, need to work together because a lot of people are going to try to pin this, and I got phone calls about it too. I did. I got phone calls about left versus right about this by many, many people I've talked to are like, oh, it's the Democrats. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I feel like this is an extremist. This does not represent an entire group of people who have a particular political belief. I don't believe it represents 50% of the country. I don't believe that every single Democrat feels that this should have happened. I don't. It's not the case. And if we all, as a country and as a nation and as a community, if we all work together to spread peace and spread love and spread the idea of open debate without violence, then I feel like this nation can start to heal itself and start to become even stronger.
Well, the governor of Utah mentioned yesterday, is this the end of a dark chapter and from now things will get better? Or is this the end of one chapter and the beginning of a darker chapter?
Here's my opinion. I feel like with the previous assassination attempt on President Trump's life, and then this assassination on Mr. Kirk, I feel like we're going to turn to a new chapter. And I feel like that new chapter is going to be a form of unity. I hope it is. I hope that people take this seriously because, and unfortunately, because there was so much heavy media coverage on the Charlotte, North Carolina stabbing, the bus stabbing, the Mr. Kirk assassination, and then the Assumption School shooting. I'm really hoping that this pushes the American people to work together and to have verbal debate and discuss and learn from each other about what the other person believes in. That's totally fine, you know? Rich, you're one of my really, really good friends, and we host this show weekly together, and you know, I'm grateful to have you here. And I'm absolutely sure that there are political things that you and I could get into off camera that we disagree on.
Camera.
On camera. We could. That we would talk about on camera and disagree. And you know, this show started because I wanted to learn. One of my first major interviews was with Senator Keenan. Now, I didn't really know much about Senator Keenan, but I learned a lot about the way Massachusetts government worked. And I'm fortunate for that interview because I got to learn firsthand about his political beliefs and what he's doing to make Massachusetts better. It's always about, oh, they're ruining this or they're ruining that. No, it's like if you try to actually listen and give these people a chance to speak, you might actually learn something. So we need to work together to listen to each other and make it so that this isn't something that happens. Well, it needs to end.
The increased frequency of, and I'm reading from what I wrote earlier. The increased frequency of political motivated violence is really, and not just violence, but threats and polarization and radicalization. We really need to self-examine ourselves, all of us, and see if we can take a step back and tone things down.
Right.
Because what we say is, especially when we're doing it publicly like you and I do it, what we can say can upset some people. And we've got to say things in a more friendly, less adversarial role. We can't be at each other's throat all the time. And we have to, as a society, we need to step back and calm down and look at things from a point of we are entitled to our own opinion, and that's supposedly guaranteed to us in the Constitution, that we have the right for free speech. And the fact that it is antagonizing some people must tell us that we need to step back and take a look at and calm down a little bit, because this shouting at each other, this of the political parties, where it seems as if some things, whether it be in our own state or at the federal level in Washington, where nothing is being accomplished, the reason that us as the population have that view is that they're not talking and listening to each other. They're yelling and screaming at each other.
Right.
And that doesn't work. I've been a teacher for perhaps some might say too many years. And if I came into a class and constantly browbeat and screamed at my students, they wouldn't learn anything, because we can't learn from each other if we're not listening to each other.
Right.
And that's what we need to do more. We need to listen.
I'm going to expand on that just a little bit. I'm in college right now, and something that I learned in one of my most hated classes. I did not like this class. I did not do well in this course.
That wasn't mine.
No. This was a university course.
All right.
It was called Science for Life. And essentially what Science for Life is it was rewiring how you think about things, making sure that you actually analyze what your surroundings are. And one of the most impactful statements that I heard from this, and it's probably basic psychology, but to me, I think about this daily. It was if you are so far, I believe, okay, I'm going to use ghosts as an example because I was just having this conversation yesterday. I 100% believe ghosts do not exist. If I hold that opinion, then I'm in denial, because I'm not allowing new evidence to come in to change my opinion. So everybody has to leave some room for new evidence to come in to make it so that you are able to change your opinion upon new evidence. If I had a spirit come right here and say, "Hey, Seth, I'm your grandfather. I think you're doing a great job," I would then change my opinion, So I feel like people need to change how they view things. Because if you view the world as, I 100% believe this and I cannot, it's a never ending race to try to get new information in. And if I hold a belief that I am not willing to change at all, then it is a form of denial. And it's hard, because there are things that I feel very passionately about, very strongly about. And it's hard to accept that, but you always have to be willing to change your opinion based off new information. And that does not mean to move the field goal. That does not mean to move the net, move the goalpost. elsewhere. If you receive that information and it does prove you wrong, don't go, oh, well, actually, analyze it, make sure that what you're interpreting is correct, and deem your opinion based off of the information that you're receiving. That was something that I learned in one of my courses, and that stuck with me because I constantly now try to analyze everything.
And I think we all should do that. And for everybody out there, I think we all need a moment of reflection to think back on the life of Charlie Kirk and the fact that he was a husband and a father, first and foremost.
And something that I want to mention too is that when someone's having a candlelight vigil, please make sure people condone themselves respectfully. If you dish out respect, you'll receive respect. And that's with most people. 99% of Americans act that way. If you are very respectful towards them, then their guard's immediately lowered. At his candlelight vigil, someone drove by and attempted to run over people. Please don't do stuff like that. Please make sure that we condone each other and make it so that, because there were family members there. There were children there. There were kids there. We need to make sure that everything's...
It seems like the respect for human dignity has shifted over the last 2 decades, and we need to step back, take a deep breath, look at everything, and don't forget those red flags. If you see red flags in your life of things that are happening to people take a look.
And that goes for everybody too. I was actually just talking about this with a student at the school that you and I work with, and we were talking about red flags. And I said to that particular student, I said, well, and they were like, well, how do I address that or whatever? I'm like, you have groups of therapists at your disposal in a school, especially as a student. You have guidance counselors.
Right.
Guidance counselors are trained in psychology. They're trained in sociology. They're essentially therapists for the students to go to.
And we have others at our school that are trained therapists. That are there for kids who need to talk to somebody. And I would welcome anyone to, if they believe that there's a red flag in their life, to act upon it. So many times, and this is odd with our society, if we saw someone who had stumbled and fell and broke their leg, we would immediately do something to render aid.
Right.
Even if we could do nothing, we would try to get help. Call 911, call for an ambulance, and things like that. So many times we see red flags that deal with not that type of injury, but either a mental situation or a mental illness, and we have a stigma that prevents us from acting or reacting to that red flag, and say, if only I had told somebody, if only I had acted on that. And those red flags, sometimes you don't see them. Many times in a suicide situation, you don't see them. But in retrospect, often they are there. So if you do see red flags in your life, react. Be proactive to those around you and those who need you, because you may be the one that could save their life or someone else's.
Something, and that can go down on a micro scale too. I was having breakfast with our director Caroline the other day, and she started choking on a piece of bread, and I was like immediately like, "Give me a thumbs up if you're all right," because in that type of situation, seconds matter.
Exactly.
Seconds matter. So she squeaked out, "Yeah, I'm good." And I knew, okay, now I don't need to call 911. Now, I don't need to perform the Heimlich maneuver, and that she's okay. But and it can get down to the micro details like that. But just being aware and making sure that you're prepared for things is always a benefit.
Be proactive.
Be proactive. Yeah. Yes. I think that's gonna.
Yes, we should have a closing. We should have a moment of silence. The upcoming funeral arrangements for Charlie Kirk, as of when we filmed this podcast, have not been determined yet, but we do know that it's going to be upcoming, and we should all take a deep look inside and think about how and what we can do to be better citizens and to get along with each other.
Do you want to have a moment of silence?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in on this Saturday, and we hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys. Spread peace, love, joy. Make sure to like, subscribe, share. We have a lot of cases coming up that we're going to be discussing. This upcoming week, I'm flying out to investigate the DB Cooper drop landing zone at Tina Bar. There's a lot of stuff coming with the channel, so please make sure that you subscribe and keep your comments coming in, because that's what this show works on, is what you want to see, and we want to thank you for your comments, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Barnabas Collins, for the super chat.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yep. So next week I'm flying out for the Tina Bar investigation with Eric that we had on. And hopefully, depending on how my laptop performs and if I have power on the planes, hopefully I'll have a video up for you guys on Saturday, my whole trip. But yeah, so.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Bye.